Welcome to the Fishing Daily podcast. In this episode, I am joined by Hannah Fennell, President of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, and Sheila Keith, the Vice President of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation. Welcome to you both.
Hiya, nice to be here.
Good morning.
Congratulations to both of you on your election to your new posts. Maybe we could start by explaining the role that you have within the Scottish Fishermen's Federation. And would like to start with you, Hannah, who's now the president.
Yeah, of course. So the role is really to provide support for the team at Scottish Fishermen's Federation and to help with the governance of the organisation. So it's ensuring that everyone has their say in our meetings and that the way that we choose forward is something that's going to benefit all of our members.
And my role is just to support Hannah in her role as president and Elspeth McDonald as CEO and the team at SFF to navigate their way around the challenges facing the catching sector. Because we're a membership organisation and we're representing their viewpoints, and that's where we take a lead from.
This is historically significant for yourselves, having both president, vice president, and the CEO of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation all being female. How does it feel for yourselves?
I mean, it feels, I think we're all really honoured to have the jobs that we do and to be recognised by the industry as being people that are, suited for these positions. But I do like to think that we come from a long line of women that have been working in the fishing industry. So there's always been women in fishing doing paid work, but also unpaid work. So I think we're really just continuing on the tradition now, really.
For me personally, yes, we are females, but we just happen to be females, but we're doing a role that male or female could do. Historically, it has been a male-orientated leadership roles, and now as more people are taking up more management positions in fisheries, it was only a matter of time before women took on these positions too. Often we get levelled, especially on social media, by keyboard warriors that we're not fit to do our jobs because we've never been to sea, but we have a membership full of fishermen who are appointed us into a role to fulfil a role that they either don't have time to do or are not skilled to do, and they want us to do that on their behalf. And therefore we do not need to necessarily have been to sea when we have a membership of 100 fishermen that we can ask and learn from on a daily basis, and they have a wide variety of knowledge and a nuanced industry that we can learn from, and that's what we do, and that's why we're here.
It's probably historically inaccurate to say that, as Hannah and yourselves pointing out, to say that women has not been involved in the fishing industry. Like, the backbone of a lot of the fishing industry for hundreds of years has been the onshore support that has to be provided in order to keep these things working. And if you look at any old fishing photos of ports or stuff like that, there is women actively involved in on land-based activities that supports the fishing industry, and this is no different, is it?
Yeah, no, not at all, really. I mean, I was really lucky actually when I started working in the fishing industry. There was already several women involved in quite high up positions, including Sheila. But in Orkney, when I first started fishing, my boss was female, and so it still is Fiona, who runs a crab factory. So yeah, it's nice that we're in these higher up positions now, but we have always been here.
Yeah, and in Shetland Fishermen, the umbrella organisation, which I've been employed in for the last 7 years, then or 6.5 years, the majority of employees are females within that. So it's not unusual for the fishing industry supported by females, and then to see them coming forward in this higher roles. And we're not here because we're females. We're here because of what we know and what we can do.
How do you feel about Alistair Carmichael putting forward a motion and parliamentary recognition for yourselves?
I think it was very kind and generous of Alistair to put that motion forward. Firstly, to recognise the roles that Hannah and I have taken on, but also to recognise the outstanding work that was done by the previous president, Ian Gatt, who served as the president for a decade and then previously had served for a long time too in that role. he did highlight that SFF has a key role to provide in promoting the long-term security and sustainability of for the future for Scottish fishermen, likely recognising that both Hannah and I come from the economies that rely heavily on fish catching sector. So my hope is that our experience that we have, and particularly mine in the experience of pelagic whitefish and inshore, goes a long way to representing fishermen throughout the whole of Scotland, not just historically where I've been employed in Shetland. The day-to-day job will be representing both Shetland and the rest of Scotland too. So we need to keep abreast of all those roles, all what our membership require from us, which is new and excellent to understand the nuances within the industry throughout the whole of Scotland. And thanks to Alistair for putting forward that motion. It was very kind.
Now, you've only been in your role of president and vice president for a few months. Is it too early to ask what you hope to achieve during your term?
I think there's so much going on in the fishing industry at the moment. I think what Sheila and I both really want to achieve is just ensuring the continuation of the fishing industry, making it, just raising it in people's perception, getting people working in the fishing industry, and making sure that we as a country really celebrate what fishing is. So that's what we'd really like to see. And part of that is there's so many different pieces. So it's all about continuing with data collection work. It's all about trying to encourage people working in fishing. It's all about making sure that the sector's got the infrastructure and support it needs locally and nationally. So there's there's so much to do really, but I feel quite confident that between us and with the team of SFF, we can keep working at it.
Yeah, there's a wide range in issues that impact the sectors depending on what fleet you're working for. And again, that can be a geographic interest as well, issue that we need to be aware of. But I think there's overarching issues that we need to address, some being minority views that extrapolated by press and NGOs to be the norm when it's very far from true, and our challenge is to address this balance, whether it be that fishermen are bad people and it's a finished industry and they're impacting the environment to a devastating effect. I think a lot of that is based on false evidence or no evidence at all. The truth is that the fishermen work very hard. The responsible individuals that want to see fishing continue for the future. It's in their greatest interest to ensure it happens. And also the voice and interests of fishermen often are played by government, and their policies will either have put fish catch at serious risks, and sometimes it's unknowingly or unintentionally. And our role is to highlight what those risks are and mitigate them as far as possible, whether that's allowing wind farm production in our seas, which often is explained as an unprecedented experiment within our marine environment. We need to keep abreast of all of those challenges, whether it's been squeezed off traditional fishing grounds by people that seem to be poorer regulated than our own sector and our own UK fishing fleet. I think the challenges are wide and vary, and we need to defend our industry in these turbulent times and proactively promote its reputation. And as you say, fishermen has been part of our history before now and for a long time, and they have had problems in the past, and these problems are not new, but we need to deal with those daily challenges and deal with them best we can, using history is an example of how to deal with that, and the advice that we can get from external resources too.
Looking ahead to the next 12 months, what do you see as the biggest challenges that's affecting the industry? Will it be like fuel costs, areas like that?
I think there will be challenges like that, but I have asked several fishermen just this question, knowing that this interview is going to happen. And I think the majority viewpoint seems to be to have a management system that actually works. our fishermen feel that they are being tainted with a attitude that is unhelpful to them. They're operating in a regime which is not fit for purpose. Often they're left looking over their shoulder for the next rule that's in their way that they might get caught out on. Rather than fishermen having the place that they need as good food producers of low carbon footprint and nutritious food, they need to have the ability to continue to catch fish when the biomass is at good stock levels and be able to make a livelihood for now and for in the future. And I think that is the main. There's lots of other challenges, whether it be off traditional fishing grounds, whether it's dealing with challenges of fuel. But ultimately, if you have a regime that they can work within, that gives them good science, that gives them the ability to catch a resource in a sustainable manner, whilst dealing with all the other issues, that seems to be a priority at the moment. And we really feel strongly that the government is letting the industry down. It's not getting the recognition it needs. And the policies that is being implemented by them is causing damage to the industry. And if you lose faith in an industry which has everything going for it, then anything positive going for it, then the future is uncertain, and you can't afford for uncertainty to be when everything should be more positive. So I think that's the main challenge, is that moving forward with a management system that works.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sheila. I think we've got a lot of structural challenges facing the industry, a lot of which do stem from our management system. And I think we need to try and create a management system that's a lot more robust and allows the fishing industry to be more adaptive and reflexive. So whether we're dealing with issues like climate change or trying to facilitate innovation in more selective fishing gears or low carbon vessels, it's really important that we have a management system that allows that flexibility and adaptation and innovation to happen, and something that would also let us meet the different needs of not just the sector, but also the markets we operate in. So one of the issues we have with the onshore at the moment is there's such a huge demand from buyers and markets for really well evidenced stock assessments and information on things like that, which we just can't provide them at the moment under how the management system works for onshore stocks. And that's something that really needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
You think, is there a negative attitude within government towards fishing, or is it being brought in from external sources? Like we talked before about the power of the NGOs and that, but in order to be able to facilitate these conversations that they're having with government must be willing to have a peer review of something before the start, because we don't see the same thing happening towards ORE or other projects where we're trying to have the conversation about the negative impacts, but it's a lot harder to get them to open the door to those conversations.
I think it's a mix of many things, in that the resources of government are tight. The number of staff and that we have in Marine Scotland is reduced significantly, but the challenges that's coming at them from so many more sources, such as the NGOs, is kind of making them, strangling them into ability to do something for fear of getting it wrong. And we've seen that with the legal challenges that's happened of late, i.e. the Open Seas legal challenge. They're now kind of stuck in this position of they're frightened to move, and that's not a healthy place to be. And I think what we need to have more transparency in that, and building the relationship back with industry to where it should be. Because if you look at the support that the Irish fishing industry's got, that the Icelandic fishing industry, Norwegian fisheries industry, Danish fishing industry, they get from their government, we really should be ashamed in this country that we're not representing our fishermen better, because the fishermen are not actually doing things too badly wrong. As I say, they're responsible people on a whole. There will be generalities amongst that where people are not acting right, and that should be stamped out. But in general, our Scottish government and the UK government should be very proud of the fishing industry they've got, and it's a resource that that is working hard to ensure it has a future, harder than it should, because it should be backed by its government.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding across the board sometimes of what the fishing sector is and what it involves. And I think there needs to be a bigger recognition of the opportunities that the fishing sector poses, which is sustainable, low carbon sources of food that support coastal and island communities. And I think that gets lost along the way sometimes, which is really unfortunate.
And how do you think would be a good way to develop that healthy relationship, that healthy understanding of the industry? And like fishing is, as I always say, it's very much an activity that happens out there, and it's unseen. So when a lot of people, when they can't see what's happening, they're able to, other people's able to manipulate that fact and create myths about it. How do you think would be the best way to address that?
I think if we manage to get the management right and have really good systems of data collection, really transparent systems, but also systems that are co-designed and co-created between government, scientists, and industry, I think that's really important to bring everyone around the table and design systems that will work for everyone. And I think that's where we've been going wrong so far.
Yeah, I agree. We're living in a society which is different from even the last generation of fishermen have seen. We're now in this landscape where society are experts at everything without knowing very much. And I think you could extrapolate that into NGOs often too. They come with a headline, but they don't need to back that up with very much before society gets on the bandwagon with a belief that that is true. And I think the industry, we need to be experts at social media. We need to be experts, lawyers. We need to be the thing that the industry's never needed to be before to fight these challenges. But sometimes you can put the best resources you have to something to fight a battle, and you've lost it because you didn't say the first line of it. And you find that very often with stuff on social media, that you're actually on a hiding to nothing by trying to redress the false thing that you're reading, because nobody's going to believe you, because it's easier just to read the headline than actually dig a little bit deeper. Society's not willing to read as much as they used to, or actually question something. They'll just swallow whatever's told to them hook, line and sinker. So we need to just keep working away hard on the things that really matter, whether it's the ability to making sure the science is right. Everything else will even just be a battle of minds, and that's exhausting to try to redress that. And I think people don't really realise the damage they do with social media. I think keyboard warriors that just spend all their time, they're well resourced, they don't need to be dealing with, we have a wide remit. Hannah will tell you as well as me do, our inbox is full of many things that we have to deal with. And if you're at NGO, you have to deal with one cause and that's it. And you're well resourced and well funded by people that are, for whatever their motivation, I'm sure it's admirable, but they get it wrong so often.
Where do you stand on the issue of remote electronic monitoring? Is this a method do you think that will help dispel the myths, or do you think it's something that's just not really going to be beneficial to the industry?
I think, Oliver, the one thing to look at this in balance is to look at what other countries are doing. And they're not installing REM as the first point of management system. I think cameras are a good compliance tool, but you're missing the trick if you just are employing cameras to be for compliance, because they're an excellent research tool, and they need to be both if that's the case. But that takes huge resources, and I think our government need to admit the resources they've got to do that, and not install something because somebody else is telling them that it would be a great thing to do. And we'll leave REM at that.
We'll come back to the ICES advice on the cod for the North Sea for 2024. It seems to be that the stock biomass seems to be growing, but yet all the ICES advice is for a cut. What's your opinions on it?
Yeah, the advice, I have to say, has come as a major shock to the industry. We have been working hard with ICES to develop a new benchmark, because cod has always been this this difficult stock that they've had bad science for. So there are a lot of hard work put in with ICES, with industry, fishermen, data to create a new benchmark, giving hope that this history of unfounded cuts based on poor science would not be repeated. To then find out that the science is saying that the 3 stock levels that now the benchmark is based on has a 46% larger biomass than before, to then see a cut of 13% because they take a precautionary approach to one of those stocks being slightly less faster growing than the others. So this precautionary approach has come as devastating news to the fishing industry. Whilst ICES acknowledge that the cod stock is expanding and our catches and the stock biomass confirms the same trend, everything else is pointing in an undeniably positive fashion to then get a science cut on a precautionary approach. So I think the SFF and its constituent associations are determined not to accept this advice without a fight. And with a vigorous approach to that, we're working with our counterparts in other countries that have interests in the North Sea, the Skagerrak areas too, so it covers that widening area, through the Northern Fisheries Alliance. And that work is ongoing, pursuing all of these matters in the domestic and in the UK system and within ICES itself to ensure that something more common sense approach happens here and not this precautionary approach that we're seeing at the moment. It's difficult to comprehend why fishermen who rarely fish south of the 60-degree north line should be burdened with an artificial reduction in the cod TAC because of an unquantifiable mix of substocks nowhere near them or within their operations. It's a difficult one for our industry and it certainly needs redressed, and we're not going to sit quiet on this one. This has to change.
We're talking about a lot about what you call that the fishing industry is modernizing and catching up, and it's contributing to a lot to the science that's out there. Do you think maybe that within the scientific community itself, like ICES and that, they need to start and look at things again? Because as we're talking about there, as in the cod, they're treating the whole North Sea as one entity, whereas it's really 2 or 3 different places when it comes to cod.
It is. There's this different 3 species mix. There's 3 different areas in there. But the ironic thing within the cod advice is all we want them to do is follow MSY, the very thing that they've been arguing for, and they've chosen this precautionary approach. Whilst all of these 3 areas are showing improvement in stock levels. The southern stock level has grown faster than the other 2 in the west and the North Sea. And therefore this precautionary approach, they seem to justify it on that. But the justification is unquestionably wrong, and ICES will have to rebalance this because MSY would be a more appropriate approach in this case, and that's following their own advice if you followed MSY.
So the Fishermen's Federation, Scottish Fishermen's Federation, is in its 50th year. What legacy would you both like to leave in order to mark the occasion?
Well, I kind of like to think about, in another 50 years' time, what would the fishing industry in Scotland look like? And I think it would be, I'd really like to see it as a place where there's a lot of young people entering the fishing industry and that we've got a really diverse fleet, that people working in the fishing industry are really engaged with like management and science, and they're able to have their say and that they're listened to. And I'd love to see us operating in a landscape where fishermen are listened to and respected, and also kind of celebrated by the country as well. So that's what I'd really like, where I'd like to see us in 50 years.
Yeah, I think fish catching in Scotland is a long history, and in comparison to that long timeline, our involvement at the moment is just a small moment in time. But legacy should be about sharing with others what you've come to know, understand and believe, and should be beyond ourselves, looking forward, looking far ahead beyond ourselves in this moment in time. With that in mind, I just want to do my best to represent our members on the matters which will help them to leave a pathway for the future generation to have a secure future. The issues that we have to deal with are wide and varied and nuanced across the whole Scottish fleet. We're also in a system that I was told by my previous boss, it's like trying to turn a tanker around, then the tanker has no engine. It takes a long time to change anything. Therefore, in our short period of time doing the job that we do, we may not particularly see huge changes, but if we could do something that encourages someone to be helped along the way to ensure that their fishermen's future, that would be a good thing. And perhaps it's great that legacies are only really discussed when you're not here to hear them yourself. So all we can do is try to help on a daily basis and without trying to struggle to achieve anything great, because sometimes the people that are trying to achieve a great legacy and do a great, massive, life-changing thing often gets it wrong, and then it's a bad legacy left behind.
Well, that's the thing. You don't have any control over it once you let go of it.
That's right.
Well, Hannah Fennell, President of the SFF, and Sheila Keith, Vice President of SFF, thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast, and it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll have you back again with an update on what's happening.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.